So yeah, I start with the question like, what is agile for you? And I never get the same answer. So what is agile for you?
For me, it means to be always open for new possibilities, opportunities, and be flexible enough not to have a fixed plan for anything. Be always mindful that something can happen, something that will change the course of the project, the shape of the product,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to be open minded, mindful to always seek those opportunities, to always be open to listen to signals that tell you that something is different. And uh, we as people usually like to have plans, like to execute them, like to be accountable for the plans. And the agile is the opposite of that. It's like deciding to go for a walk in the forest and end up in Sahara for some reason because you
Yeah.
saw something that was interesting. Agile is about the journey and having a goal of the journey without having a destination in mind, really.
Yeah. So basically adapting to change. So what is the product that you work on or your team works on, and what is exactly your role?
I'm a senior product manager at Microsoft. I work on Skype. I focus primarily on the Skype links meet now aspect, where I'm making sure that people who want to have a free, unlimited video calling experience can do that and they don't need any Microsoft account or even Skype download.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, I also have a second team, which is probably more important in the grand scheme of Sky product,
Mm-hmm.
where we look at the quality and the features around the video call
Okay.
to make the absolute best looking stage in the world and making sure that the video experience is fluent, that everyone looks their best and sounds the best.
Since you work on a product that customers directly use, what is customer value for you, and how do you measure it?
This is a particularly difficult subject for a top for a product that has millions of users because
Yeah.
on one hand you have to have the client in mind. You have to be wary that it's people who use your product and they are your primary stakeholder. But at the same time, if you hear one negative voice out of millions, it cannot be the voice that decides on your direction on how to develop the product because a single upset individual might not be representative on how you should actually react to changing stuff. So
Mhm.
it's all about finding ways of getting feedback that is representative and that will actually push you to make changes that will appeal to most of your users
Mhm.
and won't upset too many of them. You can't go to the trap where a single very upset individual that voices their concern and unhappiness will dictate the course of your action. The
Mhm.
fact that, say, 10 people have problems with a video call doesn't
Mhm.
mean that the whole Skype is broken and we have to throw everything aside and fix the problem of of those 10 people.
Yeah.
And there are other like elements where you have to be really data driven. And I always say that in the product that doesn't have that's B2C with millions of users, you need to treat the customer feedback as an inspiration to research the possible problems.
Okay.
So if I hear few dozen voices that something is wrong, that means I need to go to data, I need to do some investigation, and only then decide whether those few people out of millions
Mhm.
actually pointed me to something useful, or those were just few unlucky chaps with a single, I don't know, broken chip on the video
Yeah.
part of the computer, and there's nothing I can do from Skype's end to help them.
Yeah. 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 Totally great insights. So maybe you could also like divide into personas, customer personas, and then take feedback according to it and work on that.
Uh, yes, yes, of course. But again, it's even if you do that, it's still a matter of the underrepresentation of people
Mhm,
who voice their opinions.
mhm,
Unless you do active discovery, you do active user research that's done by people much more talented in that, and getting the information that helps you to prioritize correctly your backlog, and not just go where the loudest person tells you to go.
yeah. So you spoke about like doing active discovery, and my next question, maybe you could also use that one as a recording if you want to upload. So what is product discovery for you?
For me,
Yeah.
it's about finding the avenues of change that
Mhm,
I wouldn't consider on my own. It's the summary of actions that help me to understand my users outside my perspective, because product managers are always the users of their own product, and the you can fall into a trap where the internal stakeholders, your developers and yourself, think of themselves as like the best representatives of the user base and make calls based on that.
yeah.
And that cannot be further from the truth. Users will act differently than you imagine them to, and product discovery, by whether by customer research, by analyzing the feedback and the reviews,
Mhm,
or by conducting heat map analysis, will
mhm,
tell you actually how it's being used. You can picture like square that has a road around it that's beautifully paved,
mhm,
but then you still have people who go across the park just to have a shorter route, and that's what will help you to be discovered using, well, product discovery.
yeah. So I mean, you said in one of your answers that customers feedback could be sometimes misleading because of underrepresentations, or maybe those could be like unlucky customers or something. But do you or your team work along with customers? I mean, do you co-create products with them, or what do you think about this? Like, is it important working with the customers regularly?
Yes, but again, I treat it as an inspiration on what should be considered, and
Hmm.
not a direct source of new tickets in the backlog.
Okay.
That's the wrong way to do it, given the numbers. I
Hmm.
have worked in a startup where there were no more than 100, 200 clients,
Hmm.
and the words of the like three biggest users, clients, were sacred, because if you didn't hear their feedback, you didn't address it, you would lose those people, those
Hmm.
clients, and you would need to close the business because they paid so much, and they literally sponsored the development at some point
Yeah.
of the business.
Yeah, understood. So, like, how important is experimentation for you? Like, do you experiment with the features in order to find what's the right product? And what is the role of Agile in testing your assumptions about certain features or products?
That's a big bag to unravel. Experimentation is very important for me because you have no certainty about anything before you actually release it to the user base. But at
Hmm.
the same time, you have to have some kind of common sense with it.
Hmm.
You don't need to A/B test bug fixes, which I've heard of companies who do that.
Hmm.
If you have an antiquated technology that runs a piece of your product and you need to update it for security and performance reasons,
Hmm.
and you still risk that some people won't like it, you still have to do it for the long-term sustainability, even though you can upset a few people, because the old technology will ultimately upset them anyway.
Hmm.
So that's that's like the best way to address any doubts that
Hmm.
are reasonably big, and to, well, sometimes get a diplomatic solution for an internal team conflict. As a leader of a team, as a product leader, you sometimes will have people who will have different and strong opinions, and saying let's A/B test it is usually the way to make sure that you keep everyone happy. Of course, it's about keeping the users happy and not your team,
Mm-hmm.
but a good product manager will always have all his or her stakeholders in mind, including the development team.
Mm-hmm.
And again, common sense. If we have two possibly equally good approaches that can be easily A/B testable,
Mm-hmm.
Agile is there to tell you test it. Agile
Yeah.
is not about doing something the quickest. It's
Mm-hmm.
about getting the most value, and it
Mm-hmm.
sometimes will take more time. And uh, old school IT leaders will be focused on getting stuff the quickest, while Agile is not about it.
So yes, like I have been reading everywhere, product discovery is a continuous process. It's not a one-time thing. So
Of
what
course.
is the importance of shorter cycles, iterative building in terms of building the final product that creates value for customers and businesses? So I mean, you have shorter cycles,
Mhm.
whereas in waterfall models, you're just going directly to the final product.
It's all about the money out of everything, because if you have shorter cycles, the quicker you will realize that you are on the wrong or right track.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than invest in something that will ultimately proven wrong, you can change your direction and try to find something that will make sense. So the shorter the cycle, the quicker the answer. But also, again, common sense. If you have too short cycles, you won't be able to produce enough quality value to evaluate it correctly. It's the famous struggle with getting the right MVP, minimum viable product.
Mm-hmm.
If you do too much work on MVP, and it's more than MVP actually, then you invested too much resources to prove a point. If you go the other way around and release something half baked, then people won't like it because it's not good enough to prove or disprove in a reliable way your product hypothesis.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy thing to balance, but very important in order to get the right answers, the correct ones.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when Agile came, everything was aligned, teams were working properly, everything was being, in sync. So definitely product delivery was better. So do you think better delivery fosters better product discovery? Doing things right eventually creates value?
Yes, of course, but
Yeah.
it will depend from the product, of course,
Yeah.
because there will be products that can have a weekly release cycles. There will be enterprise solutions that will be releasing every 6 months, and that doesn't make them worse products.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't like my bank to do a lot of experiments and fiddle around with the app. I There are products that are expected to be stable, reliable, and the quality may takes time.
Mm-hmm.
So with Skype, we can experiment, and even though we have monthly release cycles that are sometimes pushed forward to improve the quality,
Mm-hmm.
the most often I've released in an agile environment was every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But again, there will be products that will release annually, and that's okay, and they will still be agile,
Mm-hmm.
even though the clients will benefit from the development work very rarely, but for good reason.
I mean, this is the last question now. So, what do you think? Like, how agile impacts product discovery? Like, what is the relation of agile and product discovery? Whereas, how would it be different in a waterfall, and how agile makes it better?
Well, if you compare agile to waterfall, then waterfall has basically a single point of information input.
Yes.
You get your input,
Mm-hmm.
you make your plans, you deliver, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
But with agile, you have dozens, if not hundreds, of small waterfalls. Because if you think about it, a sprint can be treated as a small waterfall that's still more agile than classical waterfall.
Yeah.
But it's not a waterfall, it's a river being built. So you can do few steps of your building process and then discover again, see if what you're doing is correct,
Mm-hmm.
if it gets the feedback you need from the users, and you expect to hear from the users, or did you accidentally stumbled about something better, some other idea that got you inspired, that was found excellent in the product discovery process, and then you go forward with that.
Mm-hmm.
The whole agile concept is about discovery, user feedback, and reacting to it in a as short as possible loops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So shorter cycles somehow help. I mean,
Yes, yes, you get on the right track as soon as possible, and again you go out of the wrong way as soon as possible. If you implement Agile correctly, of course. It's very easy to again focus on the wrong stuff and not hear the warning signs, or be forced by management to do something that has no evidence of being correct.
mm-hmm.
And there are a million ways to break agile and then say agile is bad. So
Yeah.
it's all
But then
about people.
it also depends on what kind of your requirements are. If your requirements are only one time and there would not be any pivoting or any change, then maybe waterfall would also be the same, for product discovery. Then agile doesn't make sense.
Yes, but that would require perfect communication and understanding of the requirements.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen like this very popular meme about swing as
Mm-hmm.
being pictured in the designs, as being pictured by PM, as it was in beta, etc. And all of those are different swings.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you think that you only need one set of requirements and you're good to go,
Mm-hmm.
everything can go to bad way anyway, and it's good to have constant user feedback, discover whether you did right or wrong, to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that in the end there's no fuck up really.
Yeah. Great, great points. So yeah, I'm done with the interview. It was pretty efficient and pretty information filled. Thank you for taking out your time.